There's a heap of stuff you can do once you have the ability to change the structure of the underlying query. So let's imagine the example from the previous slide, where we've got username, and we can put whatever we like in username. So what about one like this? Have a think about what is happening here. We're looking for a username of John Smith, and then we're closing the query. That semicolon, that's it, query ends. Everything after here is now a new query. And in this case, we've just changed everyone's password to foo. That is a really simple attack, but that is also very, very, very powerful. Now that's a pretty invasive attack to run. Try that and the owner of the website is going to discover that there's a problem probably pretty quickly, assuming people do actually say, hey, I can't log in anymore. Here's another example. What if we did this? So in this case, we're actually manipulating prices. And in fact, it's reducing the price of every item by 1. So assume it's, say, $1. Every single record in the item table just had the price column reduced. Now that sort of attack might be a little bit harder to pick up on, particularly if you started doing something like using a where condition to just reduce the price of one thing. Perhaps the attacker is just reducing the price of the one thing that they're about to buy. And if they can do this, they can put the price back up again afterwards and possibly cover their tracks. Another angle with all this is to use something like an insert statement. Doesn't matter what you're inserting into, the point here is that you can start to do some serious things in terms of modifying the underlying data. Perhaps we're inserting into the users table. Perhaps we're setting the new user that we insert into there as an admin. The possibilities with a statement like this are limited only to the nature of the underlying data. If you can run this and insert into any table, you can do some really serious damage. Now, of course, this is only going to work if the account that the web application is connecting to the database with has the rights to insert into the target table. And that is a really, really important concept in SQL injection. It's particularly important when you get to malicious statements like this. Dropping tables. Does the account that the web application is using have the rights to actually change the underlying schema? This is really nasty because now you can start to talk about malicious damage, availability damage. This has just dropped the entire users table. The system is now pretty well offline for anyone trying to access that table, but it only happens if that web application can actually drop tables, which it really should never be able to do. But we'll get onto that towards the end of the course when we start talking about the principle of least privilege. And a final one. What if we did this? So actually creating logins. So now we can start to talk about privilege escalation. Because if you can create a login to the database and assign it rights, you can now create a backdoor for the attacker to just get direct access to the database. Why go through the web application and have to do all this hard work on SQL injection if they can just go straight into the database? Now again, you need the rights for the web application to be able to execute this script, and you'd also need the rights for a remote user to be able to access the database directly. At least you'd need that to be able to make any use of the new login. So if the database was firewalled off from the public web, you couldn't ultimately do a whole lot with this. But certainly you can see the potential. So that's a few very malicious things that you can do with SQL injection. Let's now jump over and have a look at what this risk actually looks like in the code. So what's making all of this possible?